Hello, my name is Garrett Coffey. I'm the agent for Ag and Natural Resources in Rockcastle County for the University of Kentucky. Today I have Dr. Bob Coleman with me, Equine Specialist. Thanks for joining us today, Dr. Bob.
Thanks, Garrett.
So today we are going to talk about, we've checked our equipment, we've got it lined out, we're ready to catch the horse. So we're going to catch our horse, we're going to bring it in, we're going to bring them into the barn, take them out of the stall, whatever we're going to do. And so while we're grooming our horse, we're going to check for, to make sure that everything's good. So where should we be checking, Dr. Bob? Where would we look?
Well, I think in general, we got to check the whole horse. We often hear people say, well, I'm just going to groom where the saddle pad goes and I'm going to be gone. And we've all probably been guilty of that a time or two, but we shouldn't be. But I think we want to start as you're grooming the horse front to back. Are you noticing anything? Is he being more sensitive today as you run the brush or the curry over him? I think there's a lot of times horses will respond when we put a little pressure when we're grooming them and something's a little tender. We need to kind of think about that. Make sure that it's not that horse is just being that way. Maybe he doesn't like you to be real strong with the curry comb. Maybe just a stiff brush will work for him, but I want to check his withers. And just how does that feel? I might run my hands over there. Probably don't see it as much with horses in Western saddles as you do in jump horses that are in English saddles. That I think a lot of times we might not have the right pad and the saddle fit, and they get a little tender through there. But as you run your hands over, is he moving away from your hand because it's bothering him? You might want to go back and just try again to see if it's really sore, or is he just kind of being a little ornery today? But I'm going to run my hands down his legs. Is there things that are bothering him? Did I feel any heat? Did I notice any lumps or bumps? And the one that I probably see more of, that every now and then it just kind of shows up, typically probably early, and if the horse has been off for a while, is just checking to make sure he's not getting a little cinchy and that there's not some rubs through there, because that and sometimes that's just nothing more than the fact he's been off for a while. Maybe we've got him a little tight and didn't really get everything spread out underneath that cinch, but certainly you'll see some rubs there.
Yeah.
And or you'll be rubbing your hand across or grooming and there might be a little bit of a scab, something that because there's been a rub, and just sort of checking to make sure there's not any heat or tenderness. When you're picking things up, does everything sort of feel all right? And is he reacting the way you normally would expect him to a good grooming?
Yeah. Just to kind of make sure that everything's kind of normal. And if you find something that is a little abnormal, just maybe go back and revisit that place again. And, like you said, make sure and go, front to back and top to bottom kind of thing as you check, right?
And looking for things. It's amazing, where horses will have a rub that you hadn't really thought about.
Yeah.
Over time, you might start to see where they're going to have spots where hair's going to grow in white.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I mentioned about the withers. We were doing a program at a hunter jumper horse show, and as I was body condition scoring horses and running my hands over their withers and down their back, I couldn't get over the number of horses that these are big, strong, good-looking horses, and I could just put them on their knees.
Yeah, yeah.
And I wasn't pushing very hard, but certainly around their withers, you could tell that. And there were some I didn't have to push very hard because I knew it was going to hurt because they already had the white hair.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I guess that's, as much as maybe as the grooming goes, maybe even visually looking at them, like you said, for white hairs, or like you said, like the bald spots or the scabs, or, I saw a horse that we rode him for about a week out in the Western United States. And he actually got a lump kind of thing right at the back of the saddle pad, which was an odd place, right on his kind of his loin area, right at the very back of the saddle pad. He had a lump come up and it actually rubbed the hair off of it. And, I guess there was weight pushed there for whatever reason. And that kind of caused a problem. So visually looking at them is definitely something I think is
yep, and just taking a few minutes and paying attention when you're grooming them. um, it's part of the care, and it's not a race.
Right, right. We're
You're not
there
going to get
most
a
of the
prize.
time. We should be there to enjoy. So make sure that the horse is enjoying too, right?
That's right. And just running your hands over, making sure that there's not some filling, there's not something that's bothering him a little bit. He doesn't want to pick up that foot for whatever reason. Just kind of. And I think you're right. Revisiting it probably isn't such a bad idea.
Yeah. So I think as we talk about checking the horse before we take off to ride, or even before we tack up, one thing is that I had my horse had the shoes reset 2 weeks ago. So I mean she's fine. Let's go. You know, talk a little bit about how often we should reshoe. If I went to the tack shop and I bought a new set of shoes today, I mean, do I have to throw them away after we shoe one time, or will they last twice or 3 or 4 times, or and just kind of talk about their feet a little bit for a minute.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things. It's part of grooming. You do it first or last. You do it before you get on. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And you do it when you come back too, when you get off. But uh, I think you need to look at it. Yeah, my horse got shod 2 weeks ago. Make sure that he hasn't stepped on it, hasn't done something that maybe sprung that shoe. You need to make sure that those clinches are still tight. Things are still where they're supposed to be. That becomes far more critical as we go out, throughout the shoeing cycle. But it's interesting that, generally I think we go with 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Seems to be, some people will talk 8 weeks. There's some new suggestions now, and I don't think it's just because farriers want to come to your house more often, but they're sort of saying maybe that 5 to 6 weeks is what you should be thinking of. And again, it's going to depend on the horse and how fast their feet grow. But I think you need to be checking to make sure that the shoes are on tight. My horse gets really flat-footed. I mean, he can pancake in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
He's really good at day 40, but he'll be a pancake at day 42.
Mm-hmm.
When they go, they go. And,
Yeah.
and that's all there is to it. That's just him. But I think understanding it, and now I've had him long enough that I kind of know how his feet handle the situation, it's a lot easier.
Yeah.
And it might be that if you think you're getting close to the cycle, maybe it's early's better than late.
Right.
Again, who wants to be pulling a shoe out on the trail?
Right.
But as far as how long will they last, it depends on where you're riding and what kind of shoes you buy. But I think steel, we all know steel's going to last longer than an aluminum.
Yeah.
We're starting to see a lot more aluminum shoes, but they tend to be more on show horses, not horses that are going out and riding on the trail. But I think steel, we used to hope that we might get at least two shoe-ins out of them. And again, it was dependent on where we were riding. Now, we weren't riding on anything that was very hard. I might actually get, in the odd case, a little longer than that. If you're really riding on hard ground, horse needs extra traction, you might even be putting something on that's just going to keep that shoe from wearing and also give him a little bit of traction. So maybe we put a little borium on him, or some drill tech to kind of help keep him from slipping and sliding, and certainly will protect them for a little longer.
That's I'm sure this may be a discussion for this could be a whole nother discussion, I guess. But one thing that I think about is that, if I've been, and maybe this is just a made up scenario, but I've, been riding my horse in the arena. I've got a set of aluminum shoes on him, and my buddy calls up and says, "Hey, let's go take a trail ride tomorrow." And that you're going to ride a little blacktop and a little gravel and maybe some hard rock creek bottoms and some slippery mud. Is that something that, you need to think about? And, what about that kind of thing? Is that something we should be worried about?
I think not maybe so much worried about it as much as being cognizant of it. And so maybe we pick our speed going over that ground.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think riding over a little blacktop, I mean, I'm not going to lope down the blacktop unless there's a bear chasing me. But just maybe thinking about how fast we're going through things. I think about the day you and I went riding, and that was pretty good mud.
Yeah.
It was pretty good mud. There were some rocks, but I think by going slow, and staying out of the horse's way to a certain degree,
Yeah.
and letting them. They're pretty darn smart,
Yeah.
and horses have been out on the trail. They'll find the place, and as long as we're not going, ramming and jamming, I think we're okay. Uh, if I was going to be going out to where you guys ride out west, I'm probably not sure that I would be going at the end of a shoeing cycle. I'd be getting them reset, and I'd probably talk to whoever's doing my shoeing. What should I be putting on this horse's feet?
I can tell you from experience that I went out there one time and probably with a few too many weeks on a set of shoes, and ended up wasting a day riding, and it cost me a substantial amount to do that because I was in a place that I had to. So yeah, definitely do that before you take off for sure on a vacation trip.
And the other thing, I learn how to pull a shoe if you have to,
Yeah.
and maybe you take some equipment with you. I've had a couple times, and we haven't been out on a trail ride, but gone to the barn and warming my horse up, and he kind of stepped funny when I was lunging him, and we didn't get to ride because I had to pull a shoe, and I was glad that I had my tools in my truck
Oh yeah.
because it's not fun pulling a shoe with a pair of pliers and a screwdriver.
That's right. Absolutely, for sure. Be prepared.
And I knew the farrier was coming soon, and it was like I have to leave as much hoof wall as I possibly can because I don't want to get scolded for tearing
Yeah.
something up that I shouldn't have. So
Right. Right.
I think looking at them, cleaning their feet out, are you noticing any? You might not see stone bruise necessarily, but if there's been a stone jammed up there in the frog, making sure that that gets picked out, making sure that if it's been wet like we've been having, that we are cleaning their feet out and we're not getting into any problems that could cause us some issues down the road. All of this, from the grooming to the cleaning their feet and checking their shoes, it's also that when we want to go and ride, we can.
Right.
We don't want to miss a day. We
Right.
there are times that there's so precious few days to go ride, and I don't want to give any of them up.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up?
No, I think we're good. Just
Okay.
again, it's just have a plan and do the same thing every day.
Thank you for joining us today, Dr. Bob.
Thanks, Garrett.